The day I hit 12 months of expenses saved, I did not celebrate. I sat in my car and cried. Because for the first time in my adult life, no emergency could wreck me. I earned $30,000 that year. Not the 40 or 50 most people assume you need. And the system that got me there had nothing to do with cutting out coffee or clipping coupons. It was 5 moves done in one specific order that anyone living paycheck to paycheck can start this week. Before the moves, understand why this matters more now than it did 5 years ago. The newest bank rate numbers are rough. Only 3 in 10 Americans say they could pay a $1,000 emergency straight from savings. 59% say they could not cover that bill without falling into some form of debt. A separate U.S. news report found that among people who actually have an emergency fund, the middle balance is only $5,000. Barely 2 months of rent and groceries for a lot of households. Here is the trap nobody warns you about. When you have no cushion, every small problem becomes a financial event. A $400 car repair goes on a card at 20-something% interest. And by the time you finish paying it off, it cost you $600. Then the next surprise hits before the first one is paid. And the balance creeps up instead of down. You are not bad with money. You are running with no margin. And no margin means every gust of wind knocks you flat. The whole point of an emergency fund is not to make you rich. It is to buy you time. Time to fix the car without borrowing. Breathing room to take a medical bill in stride instead of a spiral. And the freedom to hold out for the right job instead of grabbing the first desperate one. I aimed for a full year instead of the usual 3 to 6 months of advice, because that advice was written for a calmer job market. Right now, the average person who loses their job spends close to 6 months finding the next one, and about 1 in 4 stay unemployed for more than half a year. 6 months of savings quietly assumes you land right at the average. A full year assumes life does not go exactly to plan, which in my experience it almost never does. On $30,000 a year, I could not afford to be optimistic. So I built for the bad version of the story. I know the thought running through some of your heads, because it ran through mine too. There is no way you can save anything. Every dollar is already spoken for. I am not going to insult you by pretending it is easy, but I want to push back on one belief, because it is the belief that keeps most people stuck at zero forever. You do not need to find hundreds of dollars a month to begin. You need to start the machine. When I started, I could barely spare $25 a week, and there were weeks I could not even manage that. What mattered was not the size of the first deposits, but that the account existed, the habit was live, and the number was moving up instead of sitting at nothing. A tiny amount saved consistently beats a big amount. You are always waiting to be able to afford move 1. Find your survival number, not your income. This is the step almost everyone gets wrong. When people hear a full year of expenses, they multiply their entire paycheck by 12, land on a terrifying figure, and give up. You are not replacing your whole salary. You are covering survival. I sat down with 3 months of bank statements and sorted every dollar into 2 piles. The first pile was rent, utilities, phone, groceries, transportation to work, minimum debt payments, and basic insurance, the money that keeps a roof over my head and food in my body. The second pile was everything else: takeout, streaming, clothes I did not need. I found subscriptions I had genuinely forgotten I was still paying for. When I totaled only that first pile, my survival number came out to about $1,650 a month, not $2,100, which was roughly my take-home pay. I multiplied that by 12 and my full-year target landed at $19,800, a real number, and far smaller than the monster figure I had been carrying around in my head. Write your own survival number down on paper. For most people, it comes out hundreds of dollars a month lower than they expected. Move 2. Separate the money so you physically cannot touch it. The fund could not live in my checking account, 1 thumb tap away, right next to my rent money. So I opened a completely separate high-yield savings account at an online bank. And this one choice did more heavy lifting than any budgeting trick I ever tried. The average savings account in America pays about 0.38%. Strong online accounts pay around 4.15% or higher. The same deposit and effort for more than 10 times the return. These accounts are insured by the FDIC up to $250,000. Identical protection to the biggest bank in your town. And you can move funds back to checking in a day or two whenever a real need shows up. Over the whole time I was building the fund, that account paid me almost $1,000 in interest, parked in a normal account at the national average. The same money would have earned me under $100. Look for an account with no monthly fee, no minimum balance requirement, and FDIC insurance. Ignore the flashy sign-up, bonuses, and teaser rates that quietly drop after a few months. Then leave it alone to do its one job. Move 3. Automate the boring baseline so willpower never gets a vote. A coworker of mine, I will call her Nicole, earned almost exactly what I did, and her plan was to save whatever was left at the end of the month. In 2 full years, she saved almost nothing. Not because she was reckless, but because at the end of the month there is never anything left, no matter how much you make. So I did the opposite. I set up an automatic transfer that moved $475 into that separate account the morning after every payday, before I could see it, spend it, or talk myself out of it. That worked out to a little more than 20% of my take-home pay. I treated it like a bill, not a bonus, scheduled to leave my account the same day my paycheck arrived. So the money was gone before my brain even registered it had come. Some months were tight, but the transfer never once depended on me feeling motivated on a random Tuesday. And that is the entire secret. If $475 a month feels impossible right now, start with $50 or even $25 and set your first small goal at a single $1,000 saved. That first $1,000 is the milestone that changes how you feel. The difference between a flat tire being a crisis and a flat tire being an annoyance. Move 4. Feed the fund with money you never planned to keep. That automatic transfer was the steady drip, but the accelerators are what carried me across the finish line. And the biggest one by far was my tax refund. Each year I sent the entire refund, a little over $1,000, straight into the fund the day it arrived. It never touched my checking account, so I never felt like I had lost it. On top of the refund, I picked up occasional weekend shifts and small side gigs, nothing that swallowed my life, averaging under $100 a month. Then there was what I started calling found money birthday cash, a surprise $9 check from a class action settlement. I forgot I joined $40 from selling a coat I never wore. None of it felt like sacrifice, and that is precisely why it worked so well. You do not miss a refund you never planned to spend. My rule was blunt. Any money not already assigned a job in my budget belonged to the fund. Move 5. Protect the fund from the one person most likely to raid it, which is you. Building the money is only half the battle. The harder half is keeping it there. When life whispers that surely one little withdrawal will not hurt. So I made my rules before I needed them, while calm and clear-headed. First, I wrote down what actually counts as an emergency, unexpected, necessary, and urgent all at once. A car repair I need to get to work qualifies. A weekend flight sale to visit a friend does not. Second, anytime I did have to spend from the fund, refilling it became my number one financial priority until it was whole again. Third, I kept every dollar of it, liquid and boring. This money is not an investment. Its entire job is to sit there in full, untouched, ready on the worst day of the year. A viewer named Tessa wrote to me after she followed this exact framework. She had just crossed her own 12-month goal when her company ran a round of layoffs and her name was on the list. The real difference between her and the co-workers panicking in the parking lot was that she had decided months earlier that this money existed for precisely this day, and she met it with a plan instead of a panic attack. Watch for the quiet ways people lose this fund. Lifestyle creep, where a raise gets absorbed into fancier spending instead of growing the fund. Treating the account like a checking overflow for sales and trips you mean to pay back later. And getting bored and shoving it into stocks or crypto to chase a bigger number. Right up until the day you need it and the market is down 20%. The whole build took right around 30 months. 2.5 years of steady transfers plus every refund and scrap of found money I could scrape together. It was not fast and it was not glamorous. There were months I moved that transfer and immediately felt broke for the next 2 weeks. But the account kept climbing, slow and stubborn, the interest quietly adding itself on top of what I put in. Then one completely ordinary afternoon, I logged in and the balance read just over $19,800. A full year of my life sitting right there waiting to protect me. That was never really about the money itself. It was about knowing that the next time life came for me, and it always eventually does, I would get to respond like a person with options instead of a person in a corner. I started sleeping through the night. When my manager got difficult and the job turned genuinely toxic, I did not have to just swallow it and smile, because I knew I could walk if I truly had to. Nobody ever taught me any of this. Not in high school, not in college, not anywhere along the way. I had to lose sleep, make mistakes, and stitch the whole system together myself on a salary the world kept. Insisting was far too small to build anything real on. Tell me in the comments where you honestly are in your own journey. What is your survival number? And did it surprise you the way mine surprised me?